Welcome to our special workshop pertaining to our tourism privatization workshop here today. So we'll go ahead and begin.
Yes, sir. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good afternoon, good commissioners. Today's workshop on the proposed privatization of the county's tourism division will feature a presentation by the Tourism Communities Steering Committee covering specific operational aspects of privatization, including the board's request to address concerns of potential fraud and best practices to address it proactively. If today's presentation, discussion, and recommendations by the steering committee are to the board's general satisfaction, and should the board wish to proceed, the next steps would be for staff and the steering committee to work collaboratively with the county attorney, the clerk, human resources, procurement, and other parties integral to an actual transition plan to produce the final components of a draft agreement for future consideration and input. Mr. Randy Smith, Steering Committee Vice Chair and CEO of Naples Transportation and Tours, will begin the Steering Committee presentation. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Amy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, commissioners, county staff. We're going to go down the board real quick, just to do a quick introductions, and then I'll do my intro. So thank you for the introduction. I'll turn it over to Christina.
Good afternoon, Christina Park, Greater Naples Chamber.
Good afternoon, Hyla Crane, Executive Director of Marco Island Center for the Arts and the Arts Center Theater.
Good afternoon, Meg Stepanian, Executive Director for the Fifth Avenue South Business Improvement District.
Good afternoon, Sharon Lockwood, Area General Manager for the JW Marriott Marco Island.
Good afternoon, Ashish Patel, owner of Luton's Airboat Tours and Captain Jack's Airboat Tours.
Diana Dome, Executive Director for the Marco Island Area Chamber of Commerce.
And Jenny Gazella could not be here today. She is the actual chair of our committee. She got called out of state on another matter, but she sends her best. So thank you for your time today. And on behalf of this incredible leader-led committee, as you can see, all with major tourism business backgrounds and experience, we represent over 27,000 local jobs in the tourism industry. Today is a working session between you, the Board of County Commissioners, and the nonprofit DMO Steering Committee. This presentation was prepared in response to the prior board direction to review DMO transition models, benefits, misuse of funds, safeguards, and accountability measures. Actually, you know what? Let me switch to this. Forgot to do that. All right, so our goal today is to review, discuss, and seek your direction on a proposed governance and operating framework for an independent nonprofit destination marketing organization. Today, we would like to do a few things. First, review DMO research. Second, is this not coming through? You're a little too close. Okay. Second, discuss potential benefits from information gathered by peer DMOs that transition to this model. Third, review the proposed governance and operating framework. Next, explain how public accountability, transparency, and stewardship of tourist development tax revenue would be preserved through policies, controls, and reporting standards. Finally, receive your feedback and approval on the next steps. I also want to clearly note that the governance documents we're discussing today are proposed in draft materials our committee prepared to help answer your questions. No policies have been adopted at this stage. All right, so I want to take a quick moment to reflect on how we got here and what our committee has been working on for the past 13 months. In February of 2025, a study was done to evaluate governance options, followed by tourism partner input meetings. It was then in May of 2025 that our steering committee was formed. In August, it underwent the review by the county manager's office, then to the productivity committee for approval. In November of 25, ResourceX issued an official endorsement of the nonprofit DMO concept. In December, the TDC approved the governance study, which included a 7-0 vote that recommendation to an independent nonprofit DMO model. In January this year, you directed the staff and our committee to return with additional information, and here we are today. I want you to know that as a committee, we have worked hard and do not take this role lightly. We saw the recent clerk's report, which was great to see, and compare with all the work we have been doing. I'm happy to report that we addressed all these areas of concern, which you will hear about shortly. We understand and appreciate the importance of these points, which is why we focused on them. All right, next slide. The goal: can Collier gain more operational flexibility, speed to the market, destination competitiveness, and industry engagement while preserving public stewardship of TDT funds? Tourism moves quickly. The marketing requires specialized tools, while public funding still requires public safeguards. As we researched and collected data, we did a review of our peer examples, including areas such as Amelia Island, Discover the Palm Beaches, Experience Kissimmee, Visit San Antonio, Visit Sarasota, and many more, as you can see listed on this slide. With this research, we identified recurring themes relevant to Collier's evaluation. These include speed to market, operational flexibility, tourism-specific contracting, talent flexibility, partner participation, non-traditional partnerships, data and targeting, oversight and reporting, and TDT revenue growth. At its core, this is a proposal for a modern nonprofit structure, a 501c6 destination marketing organization designed to improve speed to market while preserving public stewardship of tourist development tax revenue. The strategic objectives are to enhance operational flexibility, strengthen tourism competitiveness, improve speed to market, support sustainable destination growth, expand partner and industry engagement, and preserve public accountability. The guiding principles are transparency and decision-making, physical stewardship of public and private funds, strategic governance and oversight, tourism industry collaboration, and measurable performance. The outcomes we would expect to discuss with you include stronger destination positioning, faster response to market conditions, faster hiring and procurement, improved partner alignment, measurable economic impact, and sustained public trust. Our framework is organized into 7 focused discussion areas. We will begin with governance and board structure. From there, we will move to DMO, organization and staffing model. We will then cover ethics and conflicts of interest, misuse of funds prevention, procurement best practices, operating reserve policy, and finally, the sales and marketing scope. Each area is grounded in proposed policies designed to preserve public accountability, transparency, and oversight. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hall. I'm stuck in a brain loop.
Yep.
It may be obvious, but I don't want to miss the fullness of it. When you say speed to market, tell me what you're talking about.
We're talking about being able to react to conditions like post-hurricane advertising, and it will be covered in the presentation.
Got you. I just
as an example.
That thing just kept rolling. I
Yes.
couldn't hardly listen because it kept rolling.
Yes, yeah, trying to make a point with that one for sure. Thank you. Each of our committee members will present on a section and will pause for your questions and discussion along the way, so we can all give input as needed. Thank you again for your time today, and let's get started. I'm going to turn over to Christina Park to walk through the proposed governance and board structure. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Randy. I'm Christina Park. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Naples Chamber. I will start by talking about how our proposed organization would be governed, beginning with the philosophy behind the board structure. This section covers 6 topics, and I will move through them in order. We'll start with the governing philosophy behind the board design. I'll then walk you through the size and composition framework, the specific proposed composition, the officer and committee structure, and finally the board's responsibilities and how members would be recruited. The thread connecting all of that is this: a board built to concentrate tourism industry expertise on destination outcomes while preserving public accountability through county reporting, independent audits, and oversight. High-performing DMOs across the country balance 2 things: representative governance that brings real industry expertise into the room, and a disciplined public sector control that protects taxpayer fund and public trust. The proposed framework is built on this balance. On the governance side, the design rests on 5 principles: tourism industry expertise, strategic oversight rather than day-to-day management, public accountability for all funding and marketing decisions, financial transparency and audit readiness, and operational flexibility appropriate for a competitive marketplace. To support these principles, the framework includes several core governance policies. We want to ensure there's no overlap between DMO Board of Directors and the Tourism Development Council, creating a necessary conflict of interest policy, a prevention and misuse of funds and fraud risk policy, procurement best practices, an operating reserve policy, board recruitment and attendance policy, and a CEO evaluation policy. Each of these will be addressed in detail by other presenters today. What I want to emphasize here is the design intent. Again, a tourism-focused board that concentrates industry expertise on destination outcomes with accountability preserved through county reporting, audit, and oversight. Before we look at the specific proposed composition, it's helpful to understand what the peer data tells us about board size. Across high-performing DMOs, a common board range is 9 to 15 voting members. That range reflects a deliberate trade-off: large enough for broad sector representation, small enough for effective governance and clear accountability. The reference mix from that peer set typically includes 4 to 6 seats for tourism industry representatives, 2 to 4 seats for community and business leaders, 1 to 3 seats for the public sector or government liaison, and 2 at-large seats reserved for strategic experts. I want to be clear about how this slide should read. These are reference ranges drawn from peer DMOs and not a fixed decision. The specific board size, governance, and appointment procedures would be defined in the bylaws, governance policies, and applicable funding agreements, documents the board will have a role in shaping. The next slide shows how the proposed framework for how these seats would be distributed. This framework identifies 9 illustrative seats organized to reflect key sectors with geographic balance across the county. 3 seats are dedicated to lodging, recognizing it is the central role in the visitor economy and, of course, is the base for the tourism tax itself. 2 of those reserved for large hotel and resort properties, and 1 would be Naples-based with properties of 200 or more rooms, 1 Marco Island-based, also 200 rooms or more, and the 3rd lodging seat covers select service properties up to 199 rooms. The remaining seats extend representation across the full visitor economy: 1 seat for dining and entertainment, 1 for attraction, retail, and events, 1 for arts, culture, and history, and 3 at-large tourism-related or general business seats. That at-large category is intentionally broad. It explicitly includes things like short-term vacation rentals or sectors like legal, banking, insurance, real estate, accounting, or other professional services. The design seeks geographic balance across Collier County, its districts and municipalities, and representation from both large and small tourism-related businesses. The intent is to prevent any single sector from having disproportionate influence while still reaching the realities of how the visitor economy is structured. Next, this slide covers the proposed officer structure from standing committees and term limits. 4 officer roles are proposed. The chair leads the board, setting strategic direction. The vice chair and chair-elect is designed for succession planning, ensuring continuity in leadership. The treasurer provides financial oversight, and the secretary is responsible for governance and documentation. 4 standing committees would operate under approved charters and report to the full board. The executive committee handles governance matters between full board meetings. The Finance and Audit Committee oversees budgeting, financial performance, and internal controls, and coordinates both internal and external annual audits. I'll come back to that role in a moment. The Governance Committee manages board recruitment, succession planning, the skills matrix, bylaw review, and board evaluation. And the Government Affairs and Advocacy Committee carries an explicit restriction built into the framework. No tourism development tax or public funds may be used for lobbying. On term limits, board members will serve 3-year terms with a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. Chair, vice chair, and secretary may serve up to 2 consecutive 1-year terms. The treasurer may serve up to 3 consecutive 1-year terms. That additional year is intentional to support financial continuity. 2 points that I want to be sure land on this slide. First, the Finance and Audit Committee has direct oversight of the external auditor. The CPA firm reports directly to the Audit Committee every year, not to staff, creating that intentional separation. Second, the prohibition on using TDT or public funds for lobbying is explicitly written into the proposed framework and not implied. That concludes this section of how the proposed organization will be governed, and I will now turn it over to Hyla Crane. Oh, back to Randy. Apologies.
I think that's coming my way. All right. Thank you, Christina. Let's see here. All right. So now we're going to talk about the DMO organization and staffing. This section focuses on staffing capacity and the operating structure. The purpose is not to ask the board to approve a final staffing plan today. The purpose is to show the functions an independent DMO would need to manage, how capacity could be organized, what the current CVB structure already includes, and how future staffing decisions would be evaluated through the budget process. Why staffing capacity matters. This slide is going to frame the staffing discussion. The point here is that staffing capacity is not just a headcount question. It is driven by the work the organization is expected to perform, the level of service expected by the county and tourism industry, the resources available, and the oversight requirements that come with managing public tourism funds. An independent DMO would need capacity in several core areas listed here for your review. They are strategy, governance, board reporting, finance, accounting, procurement, contracts, compliance, sales, marketing, communications, partner engagement, performance measurement, and public transparency. The proposed framework does not assume that all capacity has to be built internally on day one. Staffing levels would be evaluated annually through the budget process and would be based on measurable responsibilities, available resources, workload, and board priorities. The nonprofit model creates flexibility to use a mix of internal leadership and outsourced support, but that flexibility has to be paired with accountability controls, including segregation of duties, independent audit, financial oversight, and board review. A key takeaway is that the staffing model would be phased and workload driven, not automatic. Functions an independent DMO must manage. This slide shows the full range of functions that an independent DMO may need to manage. A modern DMO is responsible for more than advertising. It has to manage destination strategy, board support, finance and administration, sales and marketing, public relations, research, partnership, community engagement, sports tourism, film, events, visitor services, and future functions such as data, accessibility, sustainability, and community initiatives or priorities, such as workforce-related initiatives. Some of these functions are already being performed today by the CVB currently, while other functions are not being done or only slightly worked on, such as a sports commission, film commission, partnerships and community engagement, events and visitor services, and specialized and future functions. The nonprofit model could help organize these responsibilities more directly around destination priorities and measurable outcomes while creating added capacity to pursue new opportunities, strengthen existing programs, and improve overall destination performance. Delivery could come through internal staff, outsourced partners, shared services, or phased implementation. The takeaway here is why the framework is organized around functions first rather than simply starting with the proposed number of employees. The hybrid staffing model. So this slide introduces the proposed hybrid staffing model. The proposed structure is not fully internalized staffing model. It's a hybrid model that uses dedicated internal leadership for strategy, oversight, accountability, and partner engagement, supported by specialized outside partners for execution and further accountability. Internally, the DMO would need leadership capacity in areas such as executive management, finance and administration, destination sales, marketing and communications, and partnerships and community engagement. Externally, the organization could continue to use specialized support, such as advertising and marketing agencies, public relations support, research firms, accounting and audit support, legal counsel, HR, payroll, benefits, and IT providers. This approach gives the organization flexibility without losing accountability. A major control principle here is segregation of duties. Spending, contracting, payment routing, reconciliation, reporting responsibilities should not sit with one person or one function. The framework separates those responsibilities across internal leadership, outsourced accounting support, and independent audit functions. The takeaway in this is the practical improvement under the nonprofit model, a unified tourism-focused structure, but with financial controls, independent review, and board oversight built in. All right, so this is the current CVB staffing org chart. Today, the CVB has 9 dedicated direct CVB positions. A 10th position is shown in dark blue, as the other 9 are, but that is a continuing temporary staffing position, not a regular full-time county person. The full operational footprint is larger than the 9 direct staff positions shown here. The county-supported functions, which are in the light blue, support through the Deputy Director of Sports, Tourism, and Parks and Recreation, a Communications Public Information Officer, and accounting support through 2 accounting positions allocated at 50% each. So the point is not that the current program is simply 9 people. The current tourism operation already relies on a broader support structure that includes direct staff, county-supported functions, temporary staffing, and outsourced partners. The takeaway here is that any transition planning needs to account for the full operating footprint, not just the direct CVB organizational chart. All right, so now we are on to the proposed functional staffing framework. This slide is a planning framework only, based on the job duties not currently being done that need to be added to maximize the return of our CVB. It is not a final staffing plan, and it does not approve positions, timing, salaries, or final staffing levels. It is the starting point of the framework to build the organization. Those decisions would be evaluated through the annual budget process based on available resources, workload, and board priorities. The framework shows how core responsibilities could be organized under a future independent DMO. It includes executive leadership, finance and administration, destination sales, marketing and communication, and partnerships and community engagement. Some existing roles would likely carry forward. Some functions may be new or expanded. Some support would continue to be outsourced. Our steering committee also reviewed 18 peer DMO organizations, including 11 nonprofit models and 7 government models, and compared them against Collier's current structure. That review looked at factors such as TDD collections, operating spend, advertising spend, staffing levels, and how other destinations organize their functions. we found that our current CVB staffing was lacking in several areas, which I previously mentioned. Different DMOs have different responsibilities, different levels of outsourced support, different facilities, different sports commissions, different convention or visitor service responsibilities, and different local priorities. The takeaway is that a future board would need to evaluate what scope of work should be delivered, what should be done internally, what should be outsourced, and what should staffing levels appropriate for Collier's destination priorities. The proposed framework gives the board and future organization a structure for making those decisions in a phased, accountable, and budget-driven way. In closing for this section, the staffing is not intended to lock in a final organizational chart. It is intended to show that an independent DMO would need the capacity to manage a broader tourism operating platform while still preserving accountability, financial controls, and board oversight. The proposed model allows staffing and support services to be aligned with destination priorities, workload, available resources, and measurable outcomes. That is the practical improvement, better alignment between tourism responsibilities and the operating structure needed to deliver them to maximize return for tourism in Collier County. Thank you for your time. Now I will turn next over to Hyla Crane to discuss the ethics and conflicts of interest.
Thank you, Randy. As mentioned, I'm Hyla Crane. I'm the Executive Director of Marco Island Center for the Arts and the Arts Center Theater. What we've learned is a destination marketing organization benefits from having members with tourism industry expertise, but that also means conflicts of interest must be managed carefully and transparently. This proposed framework is designed to do exactly that, protect public trust while reducing operational and reputational risks. At a high level, this proposed framework pairs common governance risks with specific safeguards. Think of this as a simple if this, then that guardrails. For example, when dealing with vendors or agencies, the framework requires transparency, performance evaluation, and periodic rebidding where appropriate. This helps prevent favoritism and keeps procurement fair and competitive. To support transparency, the framework requires annual disclosures, record retention practices, and access to records by authorized parties. And ultimately, all of these measures support public trust through formal oversight and ethics standards informed by Florida governance principles. The important point is that every risk has a defined response. These controls are built into the proposed framework from the start. They're not added as an afterthought. The framework follows Florida ethics principles as outlined in Chapter 112 of the Florida statutes and applies broadly to board members, officers, employees, committee members with delegated authority, and members of advisory bodies. It also clearly defines what must be disclosed. That includes financial interests in tourism-related businesses, ownership in vendors or contractors, consulting or employment relationships, family relationships with vendors or applicants, and any actual, potential, or perceived conflicts of interest. The last category is important. Even if a situation only appears to create a conflict, it should be disclosed. Tourism industry affiliation does not prevent someone from serving on a board. However, when a decision could directly benefit that individual or create the appearance of a conflict, disclosure and recusal are required. The goal is not to eliminate expertise. It is to ensure that expertise is managed appropriately and transparently. So to ensure consistency, every conflict flows through the same four-step process: disclose, review, recuse, and document. First, The individual discloses the conflict and all relevant facts before any discussion or vote. Second, the matter is reviewed by the appropriate chair or committee. Financial, procurement, or vendor-related conflicts are referred to a finance and audit committee when appropriate. Third, the individual recuses themselves. They leave the discussion, do not vote, and do not participate in evaluation, negotiation, or administration of the matter. And finally, everything is documented. The disclosure, determination, recusal, and final vote are all recorded in the minutes, along with evidence that the decision is fair, reasonable, and in the organization's best interest. A conflict disclosure item may appear on board agendas when needed, but disclosure alone does not authorize participation. Recusal is still required. This process creates a consistent, transparent approach for handling every actual, potential, or perceived conflict. Conflict of interest policy and disclosure can be found in board governance policy, audit committee procedures, and reported on the organization's IRS Form 990 governance disclosures. Now, additional safeguards apply when transactions involve insiders or related parties. These transactions must be reviewed for fairness and market value, documented in writing, approved by disinterested directors, and comply with procurement requirements, including competitive quotes, unless a documented sole source exception is approved. The individual involved may not participate in the review or decision-making process. Now, if a violation occurs, there is a clear and graduated response. The individual is informed of the concern and given an opportunity to respond. Now, depending on the circumstances, consequences may range from counseling or a written warning to committee removal, board censure, recommendation for removal under the bylaws, or termination. The organization then may take corrective action regarding any affected transaction, including suspension, amendment, rebidding, or unwinding the transaction when feasible. To reinforce compliance, periodic ethics training is required for board members, officers, committee members, and staff. Training covers conflicts of interest, procurement practices, transparency, public records responsibilities, and misuse of funds prevention. The consequences are real, the oversight is ongoing, and the training helps ensure everyone understands their responsibility. To close, this proposed framework follows a simple cycle: disclose, review, recuse, document, monitor, and enforce. By following that cycle consistently, the organization can reduce risk, make fair and transparent decisions, and maintain the public trust that is essential to its mission. Conflict of interests are only one piece of a broader set of financial safeguards. Meg Stefanin will now discuss the prevention of misuse of funds, including hospitality limits, reporting requirements, and the controls that support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Hyla. Good afternoon again. My name is Meg Stepanian, and I'm the Executive Director for the Fifth Avenue South Business Improvement District. Stewardship of public funds is at the center of this framework today. In my role as the Executive Director of the Fifth Avenue South BID, along with the BID Board of Directors, I'm responsible for allocating funds from property owners within the 6-block district to promote that very special destination. Over 250 businesses, 30-plus property owners, and 30-plus property owners benefit from the marketing, the beautification, and the events on the avenue. What started as a nonprofit organization responding to increased competition, the need to support business growth, and increase real estate values has become an economic engine that is now an international destination. Further, as a part of the City of Naples CRA, The growth and impact of this district amount for 20% of the funds directed to the CRA, thereby extending the economic impact beyond the bid. For 15 years, this 501c3 has applied responsible accounting practices and accountability with the City of Naples, proof that a private-public partnerships can serve the greater good for both. The purpose of this section is to show the proposed framework preserves the same level of public accountability that is currently applied by the city, with disclosure thresholds, hospitality limits, defined reporting deadlines, independent audit, segregated tourism funding, accounting, and finance and audit committee oversight. I will walk through the hospitality rules, reporting standards, and financial controls that would apply. In slide 26, you see that hospitality is permitted only when reasonable, infrequent, and tied to a legitimate business purpose. Promotional items are permitted when reasonable and will be infrequent. Cash or cash equivalents are strictly prohibited. And finally, operating flexibility will have disclosure thresholds. The key point to this slide is that there are clear rules and limits. Certain items are permitted when reasonable and tied to a legitimate business purpose, but cash, gift cards, personal travel, and anything intended to influence a decision would be strictly prohibited. In slide 27, you'll find that there will be thresholds of disclosure for any item, 100, 250, and above. The gift and hospitality register will be maintained and reviewed, and items received or provided as a part of the approved DMO grants, sponsorships, destination programs, fam tours, etc., are recorded but do not count towards the cumulative annual limit when used for official business. Effectively, specific dollar thresholds and the named accountable owner will be concrete and auditable. In slide, are we there? Sorry. Are we on slide 28? Okay, thank you. In slide 28, you find policies, outline policies where travel-related offers will follow defined approval and reporting rules with clear benefit, reasonable in cost, and disclosed and approved in advance. They will require approval authority. During active procurements, additional restrictions would apply and will comply with the procurement and conflict of interest policies written within policies and bylaws put forth. The procurement period blackout directly addresses pay-to-play concerns. In slide, did it not go forward? 29. Okay, sorry, I'm skipping ahead in my brain. In slide 29, financial accountability and reporting deadlines. Reporting is scheduled in public with fixed quarterly and annual deliverables to the Board of County Commissioners, the county manager, the clerk of court, and the TDC, and will be posted to the website. Again, accountability is scheduled and public. Okay, the slide 30, publicly reported misuse and control failures, lessons learned. These folks have done some of the heavy lifting for us. This slide is included because the board specifically asked you all how the misuse of funds observed elsewhere would be addressed as Collier County continues to evaluate an independent DMO model. The steering committee reviewed publicly reported examples from tourism organizations, not to criticize those organizations and not to compare them to Collier County, but to identify common risk categories. The examples generally fell into several themes. The important point is that these risks are not unique to nonprofit DMOs. They can occur in any operating model where governance, documentation, and financial controls are weak. So we highlight these examples because they are the story. We are spending time on them because they helped us identify the guardrails that should be built into Collier's proposed framework from the beginning. In slide 31, it's how our proposed framework will address these risk areas, and it is the more important slide from the steering committee's perspective. The value of research is not the examples themselves. The value is that each risk area was translated into a specific control response in the proposed framework. I would group these controls into three broad categories: operational safeguards, banking and payment controls, and audit and oversight controls. And again, the details are all listed within. I will spare you the dry presentation on all of those. But the element is that each risk category maps to specific safeguards. The one-to-one mapping from a known failure mode to a specific control, the framework is risk informed. This is also where the nonprofit model connects back to the presentation's broader theme. The model is being evaluated because peer research shows potential improvements in speed to market, tourism-specific contracting, partner participation, talent flexibility, data use, and responsiveness. These benefits work when paired with strong guardrails. This framework pairs tourism-focused operating flexibility with documented approval thresholds, independent review, audit oversight, procurement standards, and public reporting. The steering committee's goal is to build accountability into the framework from the beginning. So any added flexibility would be accompanied by safeguards to protect the public funds and maintain public trust. Now, what this slide does not address are some of the successful outcomes of such practices. One I will share with you right now, and that is the experience Kissimmee. In their private organization, they have, the TDT collections have doubled within the past 10 years. The growth in international visitors has increased from 3 to 17 countries. It has created the Kissimmee Sports Commission and has grown sports room nights from 45,000 to 450,000. And then as far as community engagement is concerned, they have partnered on community projects such as the expansion of the Omni, Champions Gate Sports Complex, and New Arts Complex. So again, these are concrete examples where the private sector and the private organizational model has been able to deliver extreme successful results for their market. As far as we move to slide 32, books, records and oversight, the books will operate on the county's fiscal year and be GAP compliant, with GAP compliant accounting with tourism fund revenue. There will be inspection rights extended to the county or its designated agents, and the committee will have oversight to the Finance and Audit Committee. There will be, committee oversight within the model. Effectively, these controls preserve the same level of public accountability that the county applies today. In slide 33, again, operational safeguards, written policies governing expenditures, banking and payment controls with segregation of authorization and restricted access to banking and financial systems, oversight and audit controls and annual independent CPA audit. Layered controls work together. No single person controls a transaction end to end. These controls extend directly how the organization would buy goods and services, and for that, I will pass you off to Sharon Lockwood, who will now cover the procurement practices.
Thank you for patching the torch. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you, Meg. There we go. I am Sharon Lockwood, the Area General Manager of the JW Marriott Marco Island Beach Resort, where I'm responsible for large-scale operational, capital, and marketing decisions on a daily basis. I have over 43 years in the hospitality and tourism sector, and I currently have over who work for me. From that lens, our focus today is simple. How do we build a procurement model that delivers both accountability and speed? In hospitality, and especially in a destination like Collier County, timing matters. Market opportunities don't wait for a long procurement cycle. At the same time, I fully appreciate that we are stewards of public funds, specifically the tourist development tax dollars. So what this framework does is it strikes the balance between it preserves public sector discipline, but allows the organization to act with private sector responsiveness. In my world, we have to make smart, fast, well-documented decisions every day. This model brings that same discipline into a nonprofit structure without sacrificing transparency. Public sector accountability with operational flexibility. Procurement standards are grounded in public sector discipline, even where traditional government procurement requirements do not apply. In the private sector, when we go out for something like a marketing partner or a capital project vendor, we just don't pick who we like. We document the process, we compare options, we disclose conflicts, and we ensure decisions can stand up to internal audit and ownership review. And that's exactly what's happening here. Transparency means publicly posted RFPs or requests for proposals, clear scoring, and conflict of interest disclosures. Competition ensures we're not defaulting to the same vendors, we're constantly testing the market. And accountability ensures decisions are reviewed, documentation is audit ready, and the board has visibility on major procurements. In my role, if I can't explain a decision on paper, it's not a good decision. This framework builds that same discipline into the DMO. Tier spending thresholds and approval authority. This is where structure really supports efficiency. What I appreciate about this model is that it's tiered and practical. Purchases under $15,000 handled quickly at a department level with one up-level approval process. Mid-range spends, $15,000 to $50,000, require competitive quotes with a one-up level approval process. Larger initiatives, such as $15,000 to $250,000, require competitive quotes, proposal process with appropriate public posting, and vendor outreach, and require CEO approval. And major investments go through a full board-level approval. Two important guardrails here greatly matter. No splitting contracts to avoid thresholds, and escalation of approval when there's involvement in the process. That segregation of duties is critical. It protects the integrity of the process. In short, this structure provides control where it matters and speed where it's needed. Exceptions, evaluations, and vendor review. No procurement system works effectively without clearly defined exceptions and strong documentation around them. If we look at sole source or specialized procurement, in hospitality we encounter this quite often. For example, there are certain data providers like Star or CoStar where there is truly only one viable source, or specialized marketing or digital capabilities where continuity is critical. In those cases, speed and expertise can matter more than broad competition, but only if it is justified. This framework requires written justification, defined business purpose, clear cost and funding explanation, and escalating approval depending on the size. And on the evaluation side, standardized rubric scoring, independent committees, and documented recommendation. And importantly, there's a vendor review or protest process, which reinforces fairness and confidence in the system. These concerns will be sent to the CEO, who will review and address concerns in accordance with organizational policy. And significant matters may be referred to the Finance Audit Committee or to the Board of Directors. Ultimately, this protects both the organization and the vendors themselves. This slide is particularly important because tourism marketing is both high impact and high risk. From my perspective, the effectiveness of destination marketing directly impacts occupancy, call it in our industry RevPAR, which is revenue per available room, or even broader base, total revenue per available room, or TRevPAR, and the total economic contribution to the county. So getting this right matters. This framework requires safeguards, RFPs for agency of record relationships, and clearly defined scope, budget, key performance indicators or KPIs, and data ownership. And another key point is rebidding is recommended every 3 to 5 years. It's critical that it prevents complacency, it brings fresh thinking, ensures pricing remains competitive. And we've seen in hospitality that long-standing agency relationships without review may become less effective over time. Also, separating media buying from creative services where possible is an important control as well. It helps avoid conflicts and ensures transparency in spending. And finally, the emphasis on post-campaign evaluation tied to economic impact is exactly how we assess performance at our property levels. This ensures that marketing is not just an activity, it's a measurable return. In closing, I'd like to emphasize one key takeaway. Speed to market is accelerated by disciplined controls and not sacrificed by them or for them. The organizations that perform best are not ones with the least controls, they're the ones with clear, well-designed controls that enable confident decision-making. This procurement framework does exactly that. It protects public funds, it builds trust through transparency, and it allows the DMO to operate in a way that is responsive to a competitive tourism market. And that is essential if we want Collier County to continue to compete at the highest level as a destination. With procurement addressed, Diana Dom will now turn to the operating reserve policy, the financial cushion designed to protect continuity during disruptions.
We need to get a bigger table.
All right.
There we go.
There you go, I got you.
Thank you. Commissioners, my name again is Diana Dome, and I am the Executive Director for the Marco Island Area Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber represents more than 400 member businesses, the vast majority of which are locally owned small businesses. Our community's mom and pops, shops, restaurants, retailers, adventure guides, and service providers. These business owners aren't just doing business on Marco. They live on Marco, they're raising their families on Marco, and they're invested in the long-term success and quality of life on Marco Island and Collier County. Tourism is an economic engine that sustains many of our businesses, especially during off-season. A strong, effective destination marketing program helps keep visitors coming year-round, supporting local jobs, generating tax revenues, and strengthening the businesses that are the backbone of our community. With that perspective in mind, I'd like to briefly discuss one aspect of the proposed nonprofit DMO structure that is particularly important to the business community, our operating reserves. The proposed reserves policy reflects sound fiscal management by providing a financial safety net that protects essential operations, continues serving the businesses and communities that depend on the healthy visitor economy. Oh, you moved me ahead. Oh, okay. Here we go. It was magic. There we go.
Exactly.
This reserve is really about financial responsibility and organizational stability. The organization reserve ensures that if revenues temporarily decline, the organization can continue serving our community without interruption. The recommendation is to maintain a minimum reserve equal to 3 months of essential operating expenses, with a long-term goal of building towards 6 months as financial conditions allow. Those essential expenses include payroll, insurance, key vendor contracts, lease obligations, and marketing efforts that keep visitors coming to our destination. The board would review these reserves annually during the budget process to make sure levels remain appropriate. This reserve is not simply money sitting idle. It is a safeguard that protects jobs, honors commitments, and allows destination marketing to continue when the local economy needs it the most. In addition, the proposal maintains the county's existing $300,000 disaster allocation. That fund addresses immediate disaster-related needs, while the operating reserve provides longer-term financial stability. Together, they create a much stronger financial safety net. Equally important is how the reserve can and cannot be used. This reserve is intended to be a true emergency resource, not a convenient source of funding for everyday expenses. Before accessing it, management would look first at budget adjustments, cost reductions, and other funding options. Appropriate uses include maintaining core operations during a significant revenue disruption, keeping staff in place, meeting contractual obligations, and providing short-term stability during events such as recession, pandemic, and of course, our natural disasters. Just as importantly, the policy clearly states that the reserve cannot be used for. Cannot. It is not intended to cover routine budget shortfalls, planned capital expenditures, new initiatives, avoidable overspending, or ongoing structural deficits. Access to the reserve requires board approval through a formal resolution that documents the reason for the withdrawal, the amount, and what's really important, the plan to replenish the funds. If an emergency requires immediate action, executive committee can authorize temporary use, but the full board must ratify that decision at its next meeting. Finally, every withdrawal includes a recovery plan. Management would present a timeline and strategy to restore the reserve, with the goal of replenishing it within 12 to 24 months, depending on the circumstances. Overall, these policies reflect sound governance. They provide flexibility during emergencies while ensuring that there are clear safeguards and transparency and board oversight whenever reserve funds are used. I thank you, and I'd like to now turn the mic over to Ashish Patel.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Diana. I'm Ashish Patel, owner of Luton's Airboat Tours. This is the heart of the work, generating overnight visitation, increasing visitor spending, extending stays, and inspiring return visits, measured every step of the way. So we want to make sure that we can effectively target the seasonal and the year-round visitor, especially during the shoulder months, so that we can keep our year-round employees working. And we really need the county's sort of assistance during the shoulder season. Us as a small business, we do like digital marketing for a digital marketing company, but having everything, all these assets that Collier County has under one umbrella, I think would really strengthen the attractiveness for the area, because we've got to compete with so many areas. For example, so oftentimes we people come down and go, we went on an airboat ride, one of them over by Miami, and it kills us because, we feel we have a much better product, and we can only do so much to attract them just through our Google and paid advertising. We kind of have to attract them to the area to come and stay in the hotels around the Naples area so that they come and patronize our businesses. For us, keeping our airboat captains, kayak guides, and national park boat captains much steadier in the off-season and shoulder months is very important to keeping quality employees and full-time residents in Collier County. I'm going to go a little off script because I have this boring script that I got to tell you. But I'd like Ricky Smith and yourself to stand up. Show it there. Okay. So, appreciate that. I have the privilege of working. Oh, we're gonna use my mic. Okay. I have the privilege of working with the Smith family. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. They are 6 generations from down in Everglades City. And they have 2 sons that work with us, 3 grandkids, a daughter. So this is a tremendous opportunity for someone like myself. You know, my dad was born in India, came here with nothing. And, you know, we were able to purchase these small businesses over time, you know, everything in tourism. And this has just been a tremendous opportunity that someone like myself can actually come speak in front of the commission. Commissioner McDaniel, you know, you represent our district. I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, but I'm really excited to meet with you.
Here I am.
And have this opportunity to speak, because I do think
Was it impressive?
with all the money, that we spend just with our group of businesses, there can be so much extra, you know, done by the county, by the CVB to really promote our area. Randy had called me several months ago. He's like, we have no representation from the Everglades. You know, would you be able to, you know, to be on this committee? And I was, you know, very enthusiastic to join. So, anyways, with that, I'm going to go back to the script and you know, try to get through this. So the activity spans 4 areas, and those are audience development and demand generation, consumer marketing campaigns, travel, trade, and meeting planner marketing, first-party data and audience segmentation, website, social, and digital engagement, booking, enablement, and trip planning tools, seasonal and year-round visitation strategies, brand, content, and communications, brand management and destination positioning, creative development and storytelling, public relations and earned media, content and influencer engagement, crisis communications and reputation management. I'll be honest with you, you know, in all the years of business, we've done some bonehead things over the years, and we've needed some crisis communications. So I can speak from personal experience. Also, sales and partnership development, things such as meetings, groups, sports, specialty, domestic and international travel trade. You know, especially this past year, you know, probably folks like us had a little bit of softness in the international markets. So we'd love to see, you know, more reach out there as a community. Trade shows, fam tours. Fam tours are definitely very beneficial for us. Industry partnerships, cooperative marketing, stakeholder and community engagement, and advertising and media. Just like I said before, the paid digital, social, connected TV, just kind of on a broader basis. Video, out of home, print, broadcast, experiential, and the retargeting and optimization through performance-based planning. A really good example and strategy to do this is appealing to and connecting with groups and team sports to come to our area specifically, because we have to compete with so many markets. Whenever we have large team sports or conventions like the ones at the JW Marriott on Marco Island or the Ritz-Carlton in Naples, we absolutely benefit from them purchasing our tour specifically. So, you know, if these people are staying like in South Beach, Miami, you know, the Diplomat Hotel in Fort Lauderdale, we are generally not seeing these people. They're going to, you know, go to Holiday Park or one of the other businesses. So we would definitely like to, you know, I don't want to say steal, but at least, you know, get our share over on this coast. We especially love it during, again, the off-peak and shoulder months when we really need the added business. You know, and you know, a lot of our employees, we're not looking at, you know, getting rich, you know, year-round. You know, we don't need to eat a Roots Chris or Capital Grill, but, you know, 5 guys would be sufficient. We especially, small businesses like ours absolutely benefit and rely on sports complex business. This one is huge because, like, we absolutely see the teams because they oftentimes come in the same T-shirts, in the same uniforms, and they buy group tours, and that's a great piece of business for us. Sales and marketing activities remain subject to the organization's conflict of interest, procurement and misuse of funds policies, including the rules for hospitality, incentives, fam tours, client events, and hosted travel. So that's the next one. Research-driven performance measured marketing. So all sales and marketing activities are guided by research aligned with the annual strategic plan and evaluated through measurable outcomes. The strategic objectives are to generate overnight visitation, increase visitor spending, and length of stay. I feel like this one has been a bit of a challenge for some of our smaller hotels that, it seems like people are coming, and obviously things like inflation are probably impacting some people, but they're also just not staying as long as they were, or once they get here, they're just not doing as many activities. And that's one area where I think we could definitely use the CBD and the county support to try to get more, a higher volume of people here for a longer stay. Also inspiring return visitation. We don't want them just to come once or twice and just disappear and never come again. We want to be, on their radar on a consistent basis. So we want to be able to position the Naples, Marco Island, and Everglades area for high value domestic, international, group, and specialty markets. I don't want them just to come to Miami. Maybe they go to the Keys in Orlando and then they go home. We definitely want them to land here. So this is really going to help strengthen our competitiveness and support the local jobs and businesses, small businesses like ours, and create a stronger economic impact. Having a good and strategic performance-based marketing plan is extremely important to our market because we have to compete with so many very competitive markets. The research and measurement includes visitor research and market intelligence, competitive benchmarking, campaign performance analysis, engagement and conversion tracking, brand awareness and perception measurement, and visitor satisfaction, and intent to return research. Example performance indicators: total room nights, just like Sharon had said before, this is something that we in the hospitality industry really look at. Are the ADR occupancy most important, the RevPAR metric? Because you could have a 1,000-room hotel, and not really have much of a rate, or vice versa. So we really want to make sure that RevPAR metric is really optimized. Results are reported through annual planning documents, budget presentations, dashboards, and periodic reporting to the Board of County Commissioners, the Tourist Development Council, and to the county manager. Over the last 19 years, I've purchased 10 businesses in Collier County, 5 small hotels, and 5 tour companies. The biggest way we were able to be successful is by being strategic in how we promote our businesses, to group our business, and create more employment. Just an example I'll give you that I learned, and Rick, you remember this. When Gene Wooten owned the business, his dad, Raymond, he bought the property from Baron Collier himself back in the 40s. And he was a diesel mechanic, back then it was just sawgrass prairie, and he was working on a diesel loader. I think they farmed the property, grew tomatoes. And, back then there was no 75, so there was just 41. And some people from probably Michigan or Ohio were coming down 41, going to Miami. And they saw this random boat, out in sawgrass, and they're like, what the hell is that? And he's like, what do you mean? Like, well, is that a boat? And he's like, oh, that's an airboat. So they said, well, if we give you a couple bucks, and this was remember, early 50s, and they're like, we give you a couple bucks, could we go for a ride? So he's like, yeah, sure. So he took him for a ride. They absolutely loved it, and kind of put the idea in his head, like, man, $5, for airboat ride, or whatever it was back in the day. So he was a very, very smart guy, and started selling airboat tours when people would drive down on 41. Enough to the point where he didn't have to actually be a diesel mechanic anymore. And Ricky, you know the full story. It's probably just half of it. But back then, he would, there was no internet, so he would have billboards from here all the way up to, from what I heard, South Carolina, which is great. But the way we do marketing has changed and evolved a lot. Obviously a lot of it is done online. We do some print. Billboards for us maybe not as effective as they once were. But some of the things that the CBD has done to create this sort of amazing area that we have. So when I grew up in the 90s, it's always been a nice area. But I feel like getting to that next level and being competitive with, larger markets is really where we want to be. We want to be a lot more competitive. And we want to be able to use a lot of these metrics to get there. So examples of, tracking our tours with our digital marketing company and regularly looking at our hotel's occupancy and drug court metrics, like I said before, are the key to being successful in our industry. We have some marketing dollars that we spend as a small business owner ourselves, but we really rely on the CBD to get people here. So, sales and marketing performance, how it could be evaluated. This slide is really about accountability. If the organization moves to a nonprofit model, the goal is not just to give the DMO more flexibility, but the goal is to pair that flexibility with clear performance measurement. The easiest way to think about this is in 3 categories. First, there are direct DMO deliverables. These are the things the organization directly produces or influences, such as sales leads, group and sports bookings, group room nights, sales missions, fans, partner referrals, earned media, website engagement, and social media reach. Second, there are campaign contributed lodging results. These are results that may be tied to specific marketing campaigns when tracking is available. That could include attributed bookings, room nights, lodging revenue, return on ad spend, and the cost per booking. I feel the cost per booking is important for us because sometimes, you don't want to just spend like hell on every pay per click, and it just doesn't have a good return on investment. This is something we've had to learn in our business to try to make that more efficient so that we're absolutely getting the most optimal return we can for each booking. Third, there are broader destination indicators. These include things like TDT collections, visitor volume, visitor spending, and overall economic impact. I would love to see a much stronger visitor volume overall. The important point is that these 3 categories are very much related, but they are absolutely not the same. The DMO can be held directly accountable for the work it produces, the leads it generates, the campaigns it runs, the partnerships it supports, and the reporting it provides. Campaign attributed results help show whether specific marketing efforts are producing lodging activity where the data is available. Broader destination indicators help show how the overall tourism economy is performing. Those numbers are affected by many outside factors, including the economy, weather, air service, hotel inventory, such as like after a hurricane, room rates, major events, and competitive conditions. So this framework avoids relying on just one number. It creates a more complete picture of the performance. The practical improvement under the nonprofit model is that the organization can move much faster, use better tools, work more closely with partners, and still report results in a clear and accountable way. There's times that throughout the year, it starts getting slow, and I'll call Randy, what the hell's going on? It gets slow, and it's such a nice opportunity to be able to reach out to people. Because I didn't really know that many people in the industry before. I'm starting to learn more people, especially over the last few months, and to kind of like share notes and see what's going on, see what other people are seeing, so that it's like, are we doing something, individually that's not right? What's the whole area doing? It's tremendous that everybody can kind of share notes and work together to try to move things forward. So the practical improvement under the nonprofit model is that the organization can move faster, use better tools, and work more closely. The final measures would be refined through the strategic plan, annual budget, partner input, and available data sources. Expanded capabilities under the nonprofit model. Enhanced flexibility and access to opportunities that are limited under a traditional government framework within the proposed procurement and accountability policies. Would allow us to have enhanced speed to market, meaning adjusting campaigns more quickly in response to market conditions and competitive activity, accelerate implementation of approved initiatives, respond to weather events such as hurricanes or bad storms, demand shifts, and competitive pressures. One of the biggest advantages I see under the new opportunity is the ability to respond to the weather events and demand shifts quickly. I can tell you that from my personal experience, both after Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Ian, was that we had for several months, especially after Hurricane Ian, a significant slowdown in business at all of our locations. We received a lot of phone calls and emails asking if we were even open for business. It really sucked during that time. Just want to let you know that. We were both times actually open for business. We must be a better way to let people know that we are open for business more quickly. Under the existing model, under the current model, our response time is at best challenging. It's really not a great situation for us. Expanded partnerships, co-ops, and revenue, expand cooperative marketing and sales programs with industry partners, create shared investment opportunities, and generate non-TDT revenue, which is then reinvested into destination promotion and the organizational priorities. Obviously, these days content and influencer strategy is very important. I am not an influencer, but well, I don't know about that. Engaging creators and content partners are very important to produce and deploy content more quickly across platforms, especially getting out to the youth. Expand storytelling, private sector innovation, pilot new approaches and technologies, and testing emerging channels to implement successful initiatives more rapidly. From my perspective as a small business owner, partnerships matter very much. When organizations can work together and pool resources, everyone benefits. So this model gives us more opportunities to create those kinds of collaboration and reinvest the proceeds back into the destination promotion and the organizational priorities. With that said, that is the full scope of the work and how it would be measured. And to close, Rainey Smith will summarize the framework and direction we are proposing.
Thank you, Ashish. And I want to thank our friends from Everglades City for driving all the way up here to support this initiative. Thank you. And I think when we look at how special Collier County is, it's because of that history. It's because of the generations and generations and generations of people that not only work here and live here, but visit here. Many of them come to visit, and they come back again and again, and the next thing you know, they're buying a home and they're living here permanently. So I want to thank all the businesses in the room today for your support, as well as the individuals who are here. We all benefit from tourism. We think about tourism sometimes with congestion, and that's just not the case. Our tourists come in and they do not travel all over the county. We love our folks that come down, our snowbirds that come down, but we sometimes confuse tourism with the weather folks that come down during the winter time. I think right now, if you go into a restaurant or you go to retail or you go to an attraction, they may be offering specials, and they still may not have capacity in their restaurants this time of year, and this is only June. And when we think about what a CVB can do, and we talk about speed to market, Commissioner Hawes, how do we get the information out quicker, especially when there's a turn of events, where we get information out regarding things that have changed, things that are new, how we pivot. That's what speed to market is all about. And it's all about driving RevPAR and driving TrevPAR. The tourism industry represents over 27,000 Collier County residents. And as a matter of fact, to speak to a few of you, you recognize that tourism is such a critical part of our success in Collier County. We don't have to rely on one or two specific industries. We have tourism to support us along the way. Our beaches are the best that are out there, and they continue to get better with the re-nourishment money that comes through the TDP funding. So before we move to any further discussion, I would like to summarize the practical improvements identified through the proposed framework. And first and foremost, I want to thank my peers on the steering committee. We all have day jobs, and we have been volunteering for 13 plus months to make sure that we get this right. And before we move on to that, I want to just summarize where we are today. From a practical improvement under the nonprofit model in governance, a tourism-focused board would concentrate industry expertise on destination outcomes, with public accountability preserved through county reporting, audit, and oversight. In staffing and operations, the structure would align destination responsibility with accountability controls under the tourism-focused operating ethics in hospitality. Operating flexibility would be paired and define disclosed thresholds, the gift and hospitality register, and the finance and audit committee oversight. For misuse of funds prevention, it will include approval thresholds, independent review, audit oversight, and public reporting would reduce opportunities for this misuse. Financially, an annual independent audit, finance and audit committee oversight, and segregated tourism fund accountability or an accounting will preserve public accountability. Procurement would rely on tiered controls, documented justifications, defined scope, term limits, media transparency, and post-engagement evaluation. A board-designed operating reserve will support continuity during revenue shocks or national disasters. And on market responsiveness, the model would enable faster response to market conditions, expanded partnership and co-ops, content strategy, and non-TDT revenue, all subject to oversight and accountability controls. Taken together, these point to a few key operational advantages: on governance and accountability, finance and audit committee oversight, structured conflict disclosure, procurement controls, segregation of duties, and layered financial safeguards. On operational flexibility, faster response to market conditions, shortened decision timeframes for tourism initiatives, and an improved ability to deploy campaigns, partnerships, and destination programs. On marketing and competitiveness, full funnel marketing tied to measurable KPIs and economic impact, enhanced audience targeting and market responsiveness, and expanded co-op and innovation opportunities. And on organizational stability, a board-designated operating reserve during disruptions, a dedicated leadership structure with specialized operational support, and long-term stewardship of tourism-related revenues. I want to leave you with the central idea behind everything that we have presented. This is an accountable framework intended to strengthen destination competitiveness while preserving public trust. Public accountability would be maintained. Governance controls, including board and committee oversight, conflict disclosure, the gift and hospitality register, and tiered procurement thresholds, and the base work would remain performance-focused, KPI-based reporting, contract deliverables, and service-level agreements. To be clear, I think Randy said it in the beginning, where we stand is the framework and the policies that we have shared today are proposed and under consideration. No policies have been adopted. What we are asking for is your feedback and your direction on next steps related to transition planning. We welcome any other questions or discussions now, and we're glad to follow up in writing on anything you would like us to develop.
Well, thank you for the presentation from the steering committee. Troy, do we have public speakers on this?
Yes, we do. We have 6 registered speakers.
6 registered speakers, and I believe I probably have some comments and questions from my colleagues up here. Would you want to go before that, or?
Either way you want to go.
Chair, we may also want to look at the court reporter now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See if we want to take a
She
break
wants a
before we
break.
go into discussion.
Terry, you okay?
Let's go.
Take a break.
Let's take a break. All right, come back in 10.
10 a.m., 10 p.m.
No, 10 minutes.
That's all right. Speakers' lips are going up, sir.
All right.
Probably good we took a break.
Oh, my gosh.
Get back to the presentation here. Is this thing on?
Troy, I shut your mic off. Make sure you turn it back on.
All right. All my colleagues are back. All right. Well, might as well just go ahead and have the commissioners here. If you have any comments or questions for the board, the steering committee, we'll go ahead and start there. And then we'll go to the public comment at the end. Commissioner McDaniel.
Good afternoon. And I really want to thank you for the obvious time and energy that you've put into this preparation and the discussion that we're having. Now remember, and I'm looking at you 7, but I'm talking to everybody. We are not making any decisions today. This is just some thoughts and questions with regard to what's in fact going to transpire if this board actually goes forward with this process. I heard a lot of discussions about measurables, outcomes, and I didn't hear specifics on how the DMO, as opposed to what we're doing now, is going to specify those measurables and those outcomes. I heard that you're planning on doing it, but I didn't hear how. I do have a question for the county attorney when we do come for a vote, because I saw a slide pop up with regard to allowable expenditures or gifts or something along those lines, and is a government-created DMO or an independent not-for-profit allowed to be outside the statutory ethics law and/or our county law?
I do not believe so, no.
So that's something we need to address, because you had limits that I liked a lot better. No one's going to buy my vote for $100, but you had a limit there, and there were limits that were outside statutory requisites and a local ordinance that probably ought to be adjusted back to the state law anyway. Minimum. I think state law is $25 for an appropriation from somebody. Is this organization going to operate outside the procurement processes that currently exist within Collier County?
I think we would be in alignment for, sorry, I'm not used to pushing the microphone on for people to hear me. We would, we would be looking at the manner in which it is currently running. We would be just running more efficiently to get projects done. So it would still have the same procurement process, but it would take less time to get something approved.
So, for example, there were opportunities during the heavy hurricane seasons where you guys were quick to respond, but then things go through the procurement process. I think the county manager's office shared that you had recently voted on a project that's going to take over 8 years to get through procurement. So even when you vote on something, there's...
No, our procurement's not that fast, but it doesn't take 8 years, I promise you.
Okay.
It depends on the project.
Ultimately,
True.
I've got one. It's taken almost that long.
I think that there were missed opportunities, for example, especially in the hurricane time period, where there were Visit Florida memberships, for example, that hadn't gotten through procurement. So we were missing free money, grant funding that we could have engaged and employed in getting people to this market more quickly.
Gotcha. So what you're saying, I like, but you really need to qualify how you're going to segregate from the current procurement process, because you can't do what you want to do within the current procurement process and be faster, period.
I think one of the examples that I would like to share kind of is my everyday. right? The bid has a relationship. We run on our own. We run with best practices. I can operate knowing that city government can pick up the phone any day of the week and ask me questions and want to have information. We have reporting standards. But at the end of the day, what the bid does to market itself as a destination is not quite as efficient or as much of a priority as some of the governmental tactics like stormwater, beach renourishment, and some of those things. So how I feel that we act as a bid is to extend the bandwidth of what we are able to do to market the destination. And I think that that is the spirit of what it is we want to bring to you today, that while county government is focused on infrastructure and all kinds of other projects in the county, that this one piece of things that those dollars are there, we can work together to make this a much more efficient and effective opportunity for the entire community.
I understand, and I appreciate that. It just be aware that you have to delineate how you're going to accomplish what it is that you want. You can talk about spirit, and you can talk about all of the things that you want to do and thought processes, but when you got to get past the bureaucracy, that's going to be imperative, and we'll hear those things, I hope, with more specificity once this ultimately comes back to our board. There are, I think, currently 6 pennies in the TDT tax. How many will the DMO be in control of? 5 pennies? Maybe 6.
Hopefully 6 pretty soon.
Maybe 6. And so how many will the DMO be in control of?
Commissioners, if I might, it's contemplated that the 40% that goes towards promotion, marketing and advertising, et cetera, would be the portion of TDT that this entity would control. Now, if you want to get into the granular of each cent and how much of that goes towards promotion, I believe Mr. Johnson is here and he could probably take you for the deep dive.
Don't have to have that right now. Just that's something that I'm going to want to hear about at some particular stage, if in fact this goes forward.
With regard to that, this entity, private DMO entity, would actually be in a better position to help market and support things like that 6 penny campaign.
I understand. There are other pennies that are in there that are put off in different arenas that aren't necessarily tourist oriented. So I just want to make sure that I have that in my head. And then, is there an estimation of cost associated with this DMO staffing increases or decreases in comparison to what currently exists?
No, we haven't. We just put together the potential org chart of what it could look like, because there are several areas currently not being addressed by the CVB with related to tourism. So if this goes forward, then we would look at what needs to be done, what areas of concentration we want to have the CVB focus on, and then figure out what positions are missing and need to be added to it. But
Okay.
no, we haven't gone that, delved into that yet.
And the last little seed I'm going to plant, discuss housing for the industry, and how. Don't look at me like that. Sharon has 1,100 employees, and they need a place to live. So one of the things when I was chairman of the TDC was I had suggested that maybe a management of some of the funds that were afforded to the TDC coming back to individual vendors so that employees can live and work within close relationship to where they're actually employed. And I had actually suggested it on a reimbursement standpoint where instead of renting a room for whatever the Marriott rents a room for, they house some of their housekeeping people in there, and then they got an offset for that reduced rent for an employee as opposed to out and out marketing or out and out sales of that particular room. So add that in, if you would, give consideration to that into your repertoire for the organization going forward, because that is a needed entity support for tourism at all. I mean, if you don't have people to mow your grass and change your sheets, you're not gonna have people coming to stay at your facility and or eat in your restaurant. That's all I got for now.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a couple comments and some questions. First of all, the presentation was extremely well done, well planned. You obviously spent a lot of time on that. It's one of the best I've heard since I've been up here in terms of the content and the delivery and the organization. So
And he's been up
congratulations
here a
and
long
thank you for
time,
that.
so just so you know.
That's saying something.
That is.
I think it was a stone tablet they read off the first time.
Right. I have a couple questions that are sort of oriented towards the role of the county commission and public records, the role of the clerk of courts, because one of the things that's very important to all of us is making sure there's no fraud and that sort of thing in the process. And of course, the clerk would be instrumental in auditing, but I don't know what the auditing role would be of the clerk. I don't know what the real role of the county commission would be. I would assume, for example, perhaps we approve your annual budget, but what is the role of the county commission in what you're foreseeing at this point? I don't know who's the best person to answer that. It may be something for the county attorney to answer, but just from your perspective, what would be the role of the county commission?
Nobody wants to touch it?
Commissioner, if I may, I think the role of the county commission would be very similar to what the role is now in approving the annual budget. I am sure that the marketing plan would probably also be returned to at least the TDC, if not the board as well. So you would have some oversight that you currently enjoy in this process. And in regards to the clerk, since you're dealing with tourist development tax funds, all of those funds certainly would be under the audit of the clerk of courts, who would maintain that public trust was insured in the expenditures of those funds.
Okay, so all expenditures in all of this would ultimately be audited by the clerk of courts.
Once again, we still need to meet with the clerk of courts to get to the bottom of everything that would need to be done. This right now is at the 30,000 foot level as they have presented it. If we take the next steps, if you give us kind of a nod today to keep going, county staff will become more involved with the county attorney, the clerk of courts, procurement, HR, and other divisions that are integral in the actual transitional planning, and ultimately any agreement that would come back before this board for consideration and a vote. So a lot of those details that you may be seeking will be determined, and with your input along the way as we go through this process.
Okay, so obviously auditing is important to me in terms of expenditures. Then in terms of contracts, other records that are kept and created, will there be any records at all? Any expenditure, any receipts, anything that's not considered a public record for public inspection? In other words, will there be the ability to contract, private entities contracting with each other? That's not a public record necessarily, and I want to make sure that everything is open to the public.
These are progress reports, again, 30,000 foot view that we're putting forth, that there would be reporting on each quarter, and that within each quarter, there would be, again, working within the same calendar, fiscal calendar as the county, the strategic plan, a review of the audit, year-end financials, and an annual program summary. And given more, anything else that would deem to be important, we certainly can make available and can have those discussions as to what you would like to see. But ultimately, it's about showing you, as the commission, and the TDC, and getting their blessings, and we're all, the role would be moving the bus down the road, if
Okay.
you will, with those
Well,
things.
in terms of, as this proceeds, then I am going to be very concerned about just public records and the availability for people to look at everything that's going on. That's all.
So yeah, as a nonprofit, that, all of that would be available, there would be those items that would need to be public record.
Okay, I'm not sure if all the records of a not-for-profit are public, but we're dealing with the use of public funds, and auditing by the clerk and all, so I just want to make sure that all of that is available to the public for inspection. And then I want to make a quick comment about the TDT tax that's coming up. There were some comments made. Mr. Patel was talking about the youth sports things that, he sees the kids come in there with their sports uniforms on. And I think, Shannon, you were talking about beach renourishment and how beautiful the beaches are. We have the sixth penny on the ballot, and it's this group in the audience, and it's you guys that are going to make this successful in terms of the campaign that's going forward. And so this will, again, be one of those kind of call to action type of comments, but if this sixth penny passes, we'll be able to finish the sports complex. There'll be 9 or 10 dedicated fields for baseball, softball, and some field sports that will bring tourists in the summertime and the shoulder season when it's really needed. But it'll also provide, as Shannon suggested, we have great beaches. It'll provide more money for advertising, more money for beach renourishment. So I just throw that out. Keep in touch with us, and we'll have I think, a successful campaign with this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellent presentation. You could tell a whole lot of thought and a whole lot of discussion has gone into everything. And I know that the clerk's concerns, you've addressed those super well. And I hear a lot of words. I hear a lot of words like transparency. I hear accountability, sustainability, collaboration, oversight. And those are great general terms to sell an idea. But going forward, I would like to see specifics as to how those big words apply. And I'm going to be a proponent of anything that gets government out of the way. So I like the idea of this public-private partnership. So if we go forward with this, I would like to know specifically what the nonprofit, what the functions that the nonprofit is going to remove from current county staff and current county obligations. That would be very helpful for me to know. How many current staff are you going to rely on and how you're going to rely on them? You know, the flow charts and all that were great, but I just didn't have the specifics of that. We mentioned on the conflict management, that it's a real deal, and I understand that. I want to know what the consequences of non-compliance to those conflicts are. A lot of times, these things appear in hindsight. Nobody's ever going to come forth and say, "Oh, violated number one. Slap me on the wrist here." No, they're going to be in hindsight. So I want to know what the consequences are. I think there needs to be some real consequences to that. And I can think of another nonprofit that operates in partnership with the county, and their organization is extremely top-heavy to the point that it makes me mad. So I want to know what kind of assurances you are going to have on this nonprofit to make sure you're not so top-heavy. Let's just put it this way. I don't want to see too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Somebody's got to do the thinking, but it doesn't take a village of people to do the thinking. And then how are we funded? Are we just strictly funded on TDT dollars, or is there going to be private monies, or is there going to be, I don't know what your thoughts are there.
It's my understanding that there will be opportunity to have some grant fund, go for some grant funding and other funds to work on certain projects. Again, we have not identified them specifically. However, with Commissioner McDaniel's comment, that might be something that if we were able to get grant for housing and underwriting those types of projects that cannot be funded legally by TDT funds, that's how we would use those types of funds.
I guess my thought process was, if you're going to accept private funds into your non-for-profit, I would like to see you be able to operate with those private funds however you want to do it without us being in the way. But if you're going to rely on the TDT funds, and that's what Commissioner Saunders is talking about, complete transparency, complete public records. So there has to be some thought put into the process on how we're going to separate those two, because the last thing you want to do is commingle all those. I loved the thought, in business, it's there's just a general rule. You can have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both. And I think you've done a very good job of thinking through that to put the controls in place. But Sharon said it's to make things faster and more efficient. So I want to commend you on those thoughts. And I'm sure I'm going to have some other things. There's 18 full-time employees right now within county staff within the tourism department. And those 18?
9, I believe.
9?
It's 9 with another 4 shared within.
Then I'm probably
shared-
thinking about shared
50%.
responsibilities and procurement. Okay. When we go forward and we see those flow charts, if you could delineate that, that's a Bill McDaniel word. Delineate. Mark that down, Terry. If we could see,
Minding my own business.
yeah. No, I was bragging on you. If we could see those, that would help me as well. And those are my thoughts for now. And I might have some more after the public comment.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Hall. I'd like to echo my colleagues up here. This was a well thought out presentation, a lot of detail. Back in January, I know my biggest concern, and I brought it to a few of you, was the fact that this exists in some other jurisdictions, and in the past there's been some situations where there was some misconduct, and I kind of sent you guys out with some homework back in January. The fluffy stuff's fluffy stuff. I get it. We're all marching in the same direction. If the TDC or it's a nonprofit DMO, we all want the best we can do for our industry, our community, and keep moving forward. But my biggest concern was, how do we safeguard from these incidents in the past where they've partnered like this in other jurisdictions, and identify them, and then bring some sort of conclusion to how do we safeguard this DMO if we move forward. And I appreciated that slide. You had about 6, I think, examples from a few different jurisdictions. I know just took me 5 minutes. I pulled some up from our Visit Orlando and a couple things in the past that had happened. And that's important. I think that's more important than just, us all agreeing that it's a good thing to do, or it's moving in the right direction for our community. But also, we don't want to be the one where they have to pay back $11 million, like in that one case I read. So that's definitely something that's important for me. I just remind our colleagues and everybody else here in the audience that this is we're not voting on any policy or anything today. This is purely it's going to be a head nod for us four that are here today. And I want to, real quick before I move to the next item, but I believe Commissioner LaCastro had a document that he wanted read into the record.
Yes, Mr.
portion.
Chairman, and I have put it on the visualizer, Troy.
Is he limited to 4 pages?
3
No
minutes.
comment, sir, no comment.
He's not even here.
And I will read this into the record. Fellow commissioners, regretfully, due to my being out of the country, I am unable to attend today's meeting addressing the topic of possible privatization of our tourism operations and team. It's important to reiterate that this meeting is merely to decide if we are supportive of giving the green light to continue exploring the possibilities of privatization and return to us at a later date with their analysis, data, and recommendation. I've stated multiple times that doing a deep dive to bring us back to the facts and bring us back on the facts, on anything that can be done better, cheaper, faster, or smarter is worth the effort, especially as we look for ways to improve all our operations. Before my departure, I spent time with many who you will hear from today. My position is one of support, especially during this time of aggressive budget analysis and the deep dive we've been doing across the board in our county. I've always felt it doesn't cost us anything to research better and more successful ways of doing business. After speaking with many of the presenters you will hear from today, I don't believe it's a major gamble or a giant tasker we're putting on the staff to merely direct exploration of possible privatization of our tourism operations, as so many other counties have already done. If in that analysis it is evident there are huge advantages, then we have done our due diligence. However, if it proves we would only be doing something different but not necessarily better, then we can best vote on that as well after considering all the analysis and data. With the advantage of already having heard the details from many of today's presenters, my position is one of support to investigate the possibilities of privatization and have the team bring back the pros, cons, in their recommendation. I've also spoken with our ResourceX leadership, and they assure me they would work closely with our tourism team for a thorough exploration of the privatization option. Although absent from today's meeting, I support today's request and hope we will allow the process to move forward to return a complete analysis of the idea as we look to continue improving our tourism team and how they operate. Commissioner Rick LaCastro, District 1.
Thank you. All right. And like I said, just remind everybody, if we give it the head nod and close this item out, it'll just, then it's going to go, everything we saw, any of the recommendations that you made up here, you know, you wanted to bring up, this will then go to the county manager, the county attorney, then the clerk of courts, and certain staff members within the county. And they'll review all this, and then they'll have their own meetings on it, and then once again, it'll come back before us. So if we're in agreement to go ahead and proceed to the next stage.
Mr. Chair, public
Yes.
speakers.
That's item 3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, unless you want to take, I mean, this is item 2A, so I don't move to another item unless I close it out, right?
It's up to you, sir. Just didn't want you to miss that. While we're on 2A, I got one more thought.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Dan.
Just
Sorry.
as a thought, as you're moving forward, in the event that we do move forward, give some consideration to geofencing for clientele that are coming. It scares the daylights out of me, but there's an enormous amount of information that can be garnered from geofencing. Where they got the idea to come here in the first place will be imperative for the success overall. So I didn't mention that before and I forgot, so.
If I could, just real quick to respond to that, we do that already.
Okay. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm the chairman, so I want to listen. Let's listen to the public comments because maybe it'll spark up some more questions from the board, and then while we have the steering committee here in front of us. So go ahead, Troy. Let's start with the public comment.
Mr. Chair, we have 7 speakers here in the room and 2 on Zoom. I want to remind the speakers in the room to queue up and use both podiums. You'll have 3 minutes, and at 30 seconds, you'll hear a single beep. Dennis Bartolucci will be followed by Daniel Zagaric.
Dennis Bartolucci, I live on Marco Island. I believe my comments today will resonate with the majority of the residents in Collier County. If you like complexity and layers of overhead, then this proposal is for you. A private marketing organization for the benefit of private for-profit businesses and paid for by those private businesses is no problem. The problem is the transfer of public tax money to a private organization. The tax was created by an ordinance of Collier County. It's collected by the government tax collected by the government. And the proposal is to funnel that public tax money into private hands. In some quarters, some would say this is welfare for private business. Any money transferred will be used first for substantial private marketing organization payroll, support services, and overhead. This proposal diminishes the money available for tourism promotion, and then it first is used for new organizational costs and an additional layer of cost all throughout. I mean, I saw costs all throughout there, and maybe you did as well. So whatever you spend on payroll, on overhead, you're not spending on promotion. You're diminishing your effect rather than promoting it, okay? Where's the value for the County Collier residents? I'm only hearing how to transfer public money to promote private profit. I have not heard anything that suggests that the Collier County residents at large will benefit. Promoting tourism increases the demand on city services. I know that that's true in Marco Island. I believe it's true in Naples as well. And the related cost of those city services. In Marco Island, the residents pay 96% of the property taxes. In Naples, it's about 92%. You may also know that. So the residents pay for the city government and the city services. There is no money from tourism in Marco to defray the cost of tourism. There isn't. And I believe that may be partially or fully true in Naples as well, but I can't speak for Naples. So keep in mind that what you're doing is promoting a demand without defraying the cost, which would fall on the residents who aren't going to get any economic benefit of this. My main point is the transfer of public money to a private organization. It's terrible public policy. I would be surprised if it's legal, but I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Thank you very much.
Your next speaker is Daniel Zagaric, and he'll be followed by David Lindberg.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Zagaric, and I live in Collier County. The tourist tax, a hotel tax, is public money. You know, sometimes we get carried away and say, well, the tourist pays that tax, and the tourist does. But a lot of cities and a lot of counties use that money for infrastructure and things that matter to those communities. And I'm not talking that far away, okay? But I think for this to work, everybody's got to be humble about what they're doing. You know, everybody's got to work a little harder. Everybody's got to work a little smarter. I don't expect these guys to open up their wallets too big, because I don't think Tallahassee or DC is either. Keep in mind that there's pressure on residents. You know, their water bill's going to increase the next 3 Octobers significantly if they live in Collier County. So there's other things that are going on in people's lives. And it didn't mean that much to me when I was a younger man working. I didn't know what anything cost. I just got up and went to work and did my thing. But don't take this for granted. I mean, you know, advertising, I was in the automobile business. You know, our ad reps had come in from Miami to Ohio or wherever they were from, and the reason we did well was because of them. And when we didn't do well, it was because we didn't spend enough money with them. You know, there's so much to think about. Empty buildings as we're driving through the county, real estate's down. You know, Kunjani's coffee shop on Seagate, gone a couple months ago. I don't know if any of you guys had ever been there to Kunjani's. Super place, really nice place, nice young people. Is there anybody here from the public that's not here from, you know, a city or a county or, you know, this is supposed to be a public forum. And the other thing that I would say, and I'm not the grumpy old man that I look like, but, you know, be wise and be thankful. You know, we could never go to a meeting and be part of a city or, you know, and I shouldn't say that either, because there are cases where, you know, regionalism does work to some extent. So That's all I got.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
Your next speaker is David Lindberg. He'll be followed by Brandon Horwin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming here right before the 4th of July. My name is David Lindberg, and I am the tournament manager for the Chubb Classic, the PGA Tour Champions event that takes place at Tiburon here in the community. Coming up for the 2027 tournament, we'll actually be celebrating our 40th year here in the Naples community. And it's really impressive that we've been able to stay here in one area for so long, and that's due to the support of our title sponsor Chubb and many of our other constituents who come out to the event and want to come down to beautiful Southwest Florida from their headquarters up in Philadelphia, New York, and other areas throughout the country as well. And as part of being here to support the movement, to continue the dialogue for this process, you know, we fully support them and to be able to explore this. And we're able to bring in several different partners for different hotels and events and things to be able to drive some tourism to the area, even though it is during February and it is the busiest time. We always enjoy it for everybody here. And, you know, we really continue to look forward to continuing that, and we're behind the continuing process of this. Thank you all.
Thank you. Your next speaker is Brandon Horwin, and he will be followed by Laura Radler.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Once again, my name is Brandon Horwin, and I serve as the Chief of Staff over at Gulf Shore Playhouse. As a recipient of tourist development tax supported cultural grants, Gulf Shore Playhouse has seen firsthand how tourism investment benefits our community. Those investments help us attract visitors to enhance the cultural experience of Collier County and contribute overall to our local economy, and it is all collected according to state stature. At the new Baker Theater and Education Center, we welcome thousands of patrons each year. Many of them are visitors who stay in our local hotels, dine at local restaurants, support local businesses through our community, and arts and culture are what play a part in making Collier County a destination worth visiting. So thank you to the steering committee for making arts and culture a part of that. As our community continues to grow and new hospitality investments continue to be made, it is critical that Collier County remains competitive in attracting visitors. A nonprofit destination marketing organization can provide greater flexibility, responsiveness, and collaboration among the organizations that help drive tourism, including hotels, restaurants, attractions, and cultural institutions, all in collaboration. Visitors often become residents, donors, investors, and community champions for us. These experiences they have while visiting the county help shape their decision to return and thus invest in our community. So for these reasons, we at Gulf Shore Playhouse respectfully support moving this initiative forward into the next phase. We believe that a nonprofit destination marketing organization can strengthen Collier County's tourism and cultural economy for the years to come. Thank you again to the steering committee for your work and your leadership, and thank you to the commissioners for your support in this as well.
Thank you. Your next speaker is Laura Radler, and she will be followed by John Sullivan.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Radler. I serve as the Area General Manager for Opal Collection, overseeing the Old Naples Hotel, Edgewater Beach Hotel, and the Capri Inn. I've spent the past 12 years as General Manager in the Naples Market, and I've served on the Tourist Development Council for the past 3 years. In 2025, my hotels generated approximately $1.2 million in tourist development tax revenue. I oversee roughly 250 employees, about 70% of which live in Collier County. I've been in this industry for 30 years. It is more than my profession, it's my passion. Serving on the Tourist Development Council has given me valuable insight into how local government operates. And because of that experience, I could not be a more stronger advocate for transitioning this to an independent nonprofit destination marketing organization. Destination marketing is an economic development function, but it is not a core function of government. Government should focus on infrastructure, public safety, and quality of life. Marketing our destination is best led by professionals whose sole mission is growing visitation and strengthening our economy. And just to put it in perspective, these TDT funds come from hotels collecting them. It is not public resident tax dollars. A nonprofit DMO brings three important advantages. First, it provides industry expertise and the flexibility to adapt quickly as tourism and consumer behavior evolve. Second, it creates stronger accountability through measurable performance, including hotel occupancy, visitor spending, and return on marketing investment. Third, it removes politics from marketing decisions by allowing long-term strategy to guide destination branding. Accountability remains essential, and public funding should continue to be governed through performance-based contract with measurable outcomes, financial transparency, and independent audits. Government should establish the goals while destination marketing professionals determine the best strategies to achieve them. Our company, Opal Collection, owns hotels across Florida, including Palm Beach, Sarasota, Clearwater, and the Florida Keys. During the summer months, those markets consistently outperform Naples by 10 to 15% in occupancy. This tells me we have tremendous opportunity to grow our shoulder and off-season business. Growing off-season tourism means more than filling hotel rooms. It means more hours for housekeepers, restaurant employees, retail workers, and thousands of local families who depend on tourism for their livelihoods. Tourism is one of Collier County's most important economic drivers. Visitors create jobs, support local businesses, generate significant economic activity. The question is not whether tourism matters. The question is who is better equipped to promote it. Government should build great communities. An independent nonprofit DMO should tell our story and sell it to the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Your next speaker is John Sullivan. He'll be followed by Michael Pucella.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'm the general manager at Paradise Coast Sports Complex. And Jay and his team at the CVB have been a tremendous asset to us in trying to bring in new events and new tourism into the community. Sports tourism is a huge business, and it's growing, but so is the competition. Every single place that we compete against is getting big support from their CVB or their TDC. So anything that we can do to help support Jay and his team being able to react quicker and would be tremendous help for us. Assuming that they can meet all of the safeguards that the council wants in place, we would be in full support of this project moving forward.
Thank you. Your next speaker is Michael Pucella. He'll be followed on Zoom by Jonathan Forrester.
Good afternoon. For the record, Michael Puhala, very close. And I'm going to speak as slow as I can. I've been accused before of talking too fast. So just appreciate the opportunity to come out, hear the presentation today. Appreciate the time the commissioners are devoting to this. And what stood out to me in the presentation and just thinking about this concept and this model is the opportunity for business leaders and stakeholders in our community to take a more active role in tourism promotion. Seeing warmed my heart, Commissioner McDaniel, to hear you talk about housing. And that in my day job, serve as CEO and executive director of a trio of nonprofits focused on workforce and attainable housing in the community, and certainly can see a pathway for individuals like myself to get involved through a board that is focusing on tourism. I think we all know how important tourism industry is to our community. It's such a strong economic driver. So I just see that as such a tremendous opportunity to get more stakeholders, more community leaders involved in helping to lift that industry up, to have a voice, to have an opportunity to be involved in the process. So very appreciative of the time today and supportive of seeing this move forward.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Your next speaker joins us on Zoom, Jonathan Forrester. Jonathan, you've been asked to unmute yourself, if you'll do so at this time.
I think I did. Can you hear me?
You did. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead, Jonathan.
Excellent. I can follow general directions. Hi, Commissioners. This is John Forrester, the CEO of the Golisano Children's Museum of Naples. I'm really excited to listen to this presentation today because it answered a lot of the questions I think that I had also about how this organization would operate. And so it is our hope that you would consider moving this forward to the next step. With the understanding that, as I think Commissioner Hall said earlier on, that the idea of getting the government out of this particular kind of work also means relaxing a little bit of the day-to-day operational control and relying on the clerk for the guardrails on how the money is spent, but not having the commission or the TDC get hyper-focused on the number of employees that might be as part of this team. but giving them really strong benchmarks and holding them accountable to those benchmarks so that the DMO would create the outcomes that you expect. And my hope is that that you guys would move forward doing that because it provides so much value to the community. Just thinking about the amount of money that I as a taxpayer save by not having to pay for some of the services like beach renourishment that the TDC tax pays for. The DMO, more leverage to raise even more money through that venue means that we can do a lot more projects here in Collier County that are going to save taxpayers money. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, your final registered speaker is Mick Moore. Mr. Moore, you've been asked to, or prompted to unmute yourself, and I see you've done that. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mick Moore. I'm one of the owners of the Vanderbilt Beach Resort and the Turtle Club Restaurant. The Vanderbilt Beach Resort was built in 1951, about 75 years ago, and we're one of the oldest beach hotels in Collier County, and the Turtle Club is over 25 years old. As a hotel, we of course collect tourist taxes from our guests and pay these to the county each and every year. And a lot has changed over the last 75 years, but the importance of tourism to our economy has not. Tourism helps add jobs. It brings more business opportunities to the county, more restaurants, more shopping, more arts and cultural offerings, and a lot of other benefits that directly benefit our local residences. Many of the businesses that our local residents enjoy simply would not be here without strong tourism. And it certainly has supported our real estate and housing market over the years. And in fact, we know many local residents who started out by coming to our resort or others before purchasing a house and opening a business or moving their business here. So I believe that 2 things are critically important to Collier County tourism as we move forward. First, in my opinion, we need to keep our beaches wide and beautiful with renourishment, and probably we need to do renourishment more often than every 5 years. Second, we all know that we need to do a better job telling our story as a tourist destination, because unfortunately, even though we all know and love Collier County, there simply are some people who still don't know about us, and with today's short attention spans, even the ones who know about us forget. And this is especially so when destinations like Sarasota, Fort Myers, Orlando, and others are continuing to strongly tell their story every day. So for all the reasons identified and discussed earlier, we believe that transitioning from a CVB model to an independent destination marketing organization is a good idea, and we support continuing to move forward with this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes our public comment.
All right. Well, I don't know if I have any other comments from the board here or not. It doesn't appear to be so. So I don't believe we take an official vote on this or anything. It's just more or less just we agree to let it move forward to the next phase. So
Good.
I would agree with that.
Got all 4 head nods here. Okay, guys. Well, you still got a lot of work ahead of you, and get with the county manager and set up the next step in the process. And we'll see you back here. Thank you. This will adjourn the meeting.